Hi, good morning. This is Kelly McKinney Golden. I am presenting for EDL 850 School Law for Dr. G. This is my Module 6 presentation on Internet safety, protecting our students in the 21st century. So a little bit about the Children's Internet Protection Act, CIPA. It requires all pornographic sites to use age verification and prohibits public pornography. So basically, it's filtering any material that is considered obscene. And both schools and public libraries have to create a monitoring system. They have to filter this material, and they have to implement a policy or amend a current policy that they have to enforce online safety and security. Now, schools who are found in violation of this would lose their funding for the ERATE program, and that's what I'm going to talk about next. So CIP and the ERATE program. So Congress requires libraries and public schools, actually any schools, K to 12, using ERATE discounts on internet access and internal connections to purchase and use a technology protection measure. So basically, if they receive funds from ERATE, then they have to have some type of internet protective service in place. So the ERATE is a universal service fund that's under the direction of the FCC, or the Federal Commission of Communications. And the purpose of the ERATE program was to create affordable telecommunications and internet service. And we've seen great usage for the ERATE program in schools. And again, it's asking that there be a filtering and monitoring system. And to apply for those ERATE programs, what we do is we go through the ERATE cycle. Here's just a little graphic on ERATE in 2016. You can see that there has been a $2 billion increase of funds between 2014 and 2016 for ERATE, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a bit. Again, the Children's Online Privacy Act, or COPA, that you see here is Item 16, Part 312. And COPA is developed on April 21st, 2000, and it applies to online collection of personal information by persons and entities under U.S. jurisdiction about children under the age of 13. And in 2013, they created additional parent notice and consent requirements. So what this is saying, it is not saying that it is illegal for students under 13 to share their information. What it is saying is that there are going to be some additional protections put in place so that other items cannot be purchased while perhaps using a particular site. And there have been companies that have gotten in trouble for this. So for instance, when I did a little research, I found that the Hershey company and Mrs. Fields had gotten in trouble because some of these sites that target children are also soliciting that they purchase items. And that is the part that using the additional items and purchase without parent consent is the part that they are trying to regulate. So protecting schools, children in the 21st Century Act. This was in July 1st of 2012. To demonstrate compliance. And for schools to be certified, they must adopt an internet safety policy or amend an existing safety policy that provides education for minors about appropriate online behavior. So that includes social networking, websites, chat rooms, cyberbullying, and they have to certify that they're compliant using the following forms that I mentioned a little earlier in the presentation. So form in particular, 486 and 479, and you can see the ERATE cycle. So if they're not compliant with filing these forms and doing the filtering and monitoring systems, then they can lose their ERATE funding, which is a substantial amount of funding. So the FCC has actually exceeded its $2.25 billion budget that they have for E-rate programs. Internet access in school has risen from about 35% in the mid-90s to almost 95% currently, and access to classrooms is about at 65% at this point. So a little bit about cyberbullying. It involves electronic devices to send hurtful or post-hurtful embarrassing text messages, images intended to create anxiety, intimidation, or emotional distress to another person. If there is a repetitive or continued pattern, it can be considered cyber stalking. And the Megan Meier Cyberbullying Prevention Act came to Congress in 2009. This is a really kind of sad and interesting story. There was a mom and her daughter who actually created a fake site, a fake Facebook page, I believe, in the guise of a boy that Megan was interested in. And initially the conversations were positive, but then they turned to be very negative and hurtful. And Megan did end up completing suicide as a result of the continued harassment via that site. And you can see in that news article right there that the mom was indicted on a MySpace. I'm sorry, it was MySpace. It wasn't Facebook related suicide because of that page that had the harassing and bullying content. This is just a little thing about Megan Meier. Change starts with me. Her family and friends just trying to create some positive out of her death. So not only with the legislation that's being approved, but also with the Change Starts With Me campaign. And that's basically just kind of doing good deeds for other people and paying it forward. So Fort Hays state policies, I looked a little bit into the information access and technology policies. Basically, they have a reasonable care and utilization statement. This policy that they've created is intended to supplement laws but not replace them. And there's both examples of and examples of prohibited use. Examples of the prohibited use would be accessing others' files, trying to circumvent the security, illegal copies, harassing emails or messages. And the consequences of this abuse can be investigation and then held accountable disciplinary actions that could lead to dismissal from the university or could be legal action depending on the severity of the violation. Back in Newport, we have our own internet usage policy. It talks about appropriate behavior. The appropriate behavior portion talks about how it's supposed to support the goals of research and education, and that you can't access games or chat lines without explicit permission. And then it gives specific examples of violations, revealing personal information of others, sending messages or pictures that could be offensive, inappropriate language, violating copyright law, and again, anything that's harassing or insulting or attacking to people. You'll see a picture right there of our Newport Public Schools student internet policy. They have to sign off, the user has to sign off as well as their parents. This year we started a new initiative at school where all the incoming freshmen got their own personal Chromebook to use as students, and so they were all required to sign this policy and to sign other additional permissions. So they were able to use that Chromebook to school and after school in their home as well. So a little bit more about Newport Public Schools and their cyberbullying policy. So there is a cyberbullying policy on record. They define cyberbullying anything that includes tormenting, threatening, taunting, ranking, degrading, harassing, humiliating, or otherwise targeting a student or staff member through the use of technology or an electronic communication, which could be signs, signals, writing, images, sounds, data, texting, or intelligence of any nature transmitted by wire, radio, photoelectronic, and it goes into more details. And then it specifically talks about the forms of the cyberbullying, some of which include creation of a web page or blog assuming another's identity, very much like in the Megan Miner case, posting of content impersonating another, distribution of electronic communications, and posting materials that maybe access people impersonating them. So then there are a couple of other stipulations of forms of cyberbullying. So what we can do as educators, oops, knew that was going to happen. What we can do as educators is we just have to know that we have the duty to protect our students, that students have a right to receive an education and environment that's free from fear. And if teachers are not doing their due diligence to protect students' internet safety and educate them around internet safety, then teachers could be liable. The graphic there, you have Safebook. This is just kind of some guidelines for parents, teachers, and friends for using Facebook responsibly. So this concludes my presentation for Module 6 for EDL 850. I hope you enjoyed it, and sorry for any minor technical difficulties.